live. At least I hope. Yeah, okay, we should be live. Hey everyone, we're just waiting for Sotek, who's doing his pre-roll, so obviously we can see him. But how are you guys all doing? Welcome back to another episode of Lorebeards. We've got a really exciting one. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I do apologize, I'm a little bit sweaty. I've just come back from the gym, so I'm a little bit, well, out of breath and just freaking tired. But how are you guys all doing? Just going to start here and look at all the stuff over here. Good there. Yeah, are we all good? Yeah, we're good. Hey, Sir Gregory, how are you doing? Okay, so Sotek will be with us in just a few minutes, and well, you can already see him on screen. I think he's just sorting out the Twitch stuff because it's been a bit of a weird thing trying to sync up Twitch and YouTube. It's always a bit strange. Hey, Dominic, how you doing? And hey, Minikins. So this should be pretty fun. We've got some exciting things to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, some hobby stuff, some Warhammer 3 stuff, some speculation, a little bit of everything, and it should be awesome. And by the way, a lot of you guys who used to watch the older streams and so on, the cats are back in the room. You can probably see the little box in the food bowl there. So they will be running around. They're actually just sleeping on the windowsill at the moment. So if you see random cat butts, you know, it's cat butts. Oh, yeah. We're back. It's been a while. We haven't done an episode in about a week, but unfortunately, you know, these things do happen. We're looking forward to all the different speculation that we're going to be doing, and someone keeps messaging me on Facebook.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, dude.
I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you?
I have no idea.
There we go. I figured it out.
There we go.
Jesus. Hello, everybody. We're gonna give folks just a second to kind of come in here, because we don't have an intro yet. One day we will. One day. So we're just gonna kind of be chilling for just a sec while people have a chance to file in. So while they're doing that, Nathan, I'm sure everybody would love to hear how has your week been?
Oh, great, man, great. Just came back recently from the festival, as you know. I'm injured. I'm actually I got a tan, man. I'm actually kind of tanned now. It's kind of nice. In the sun for like 12 hours constantly each day, just drinking beer and listening to heavy metal. It was absolutely great. It's the break I needed for the first time in 2 years. Saw some great bands, met some awesome people, and, you know, just absolutely fantastically happy. It's very needed. But what about you? How have you been all week? Because we haven't done an episode in like a week, 2 weeks actually.
Yeah, that was my bad last time. I had a family medical thing pop up, but it's been good. Wasn't able to stream as much as I wanted this week because we're having a new patio installed out back, and the old one was made out of stone. Gotta turn my alerts off. Hey, it's Monkeyman. Thanks so much for renewing your sub and all that, but now I'm gonna mute that. Thanks, guys. No, it's been good. Been busy preparing for a few things. I need to finish getting all of my stuff for my trip to Scotland figured out, because I got all the hotel and plane stuff done, but I still need to get a hotel figured out. So we'll do that soon. And then, but yeah, I mean, it's been good lately. We'll kind of get into hobby stuff in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been mostly just dealing with like contractors out back, because they had to take out the old patio, which was like this really ugly, like pink stone. Like it was almost like, it was kind of like that asphalt texture where it's like really bumpy and stuff. And it was this ugly pink color, and we hated it. So we finally got around to having it ripped out of the ground.
Nice.
Which was super noisy. And now they're putting in like a really sleek, like slate one that you'll be able to, and it's also a lot bigger than the old one. We went from having a patio that was maybe gosh, was probably like, I don't know, 15 feet or something like that. Just super not. It was pretty, like, you could fit a grill and a table on it, and that was about it. The new one is like bigger than the apartments I've had. It's like massively further out, and is really, really good.
Nice. Oh, MIDI, just to let you know, no, I didn't get shanked. Basically, what happened is I got flipped into a railing during the Creator gig, which is always fun. I mean, if you go see Creator, you expect to get hurt.
Okay, so when you say flipped into a railing,
yeah.
Walk us through what physically this entails.
Right. So, do you know what a wall of death is?
I'm familiar with the term, but why don't you explain it for anyone that doesn't?
It's a massive mosh pit where everyone just kind of separates for a while, and when the band says go, everyone just smashes into each other. And the singer from Creator was basically screaming circle pit every time he could, so everyone was just beating the shit out of each other constantly, which was great. I'm a big Creator fan, and it was nice to actually get into a pit again. But yeah, I got flipped into a railing and I got kind of cut, which, hey, happens. You kind of put yourself into that risk if you take part into one of those events. But he's an absolutely tremendous vocalist, and you could tell that he was commanding all 5,000 people there. It was great.
Sorry, dog was... Oh, there she is.
Oh, I see her. But yeah, like, oh, look at her.
Sorry. It's like, normally I'm happy to let her bark, but then I remembered that this is supposed to go on the podcast episodes, and I don't think people want to listen to a giant dog bark.
But yeah, no, it's a weird thing when it comes to these mosh pits, but it's just nice to be around people that you get along with, especially metalheads. There was this massive sense of community. It was just, it was great. Like, I got picked up as soon as I fell down. I noticed I was bleeding, and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's move you to the infirmary." It's like, man, like, let the concert finish, then I can go to the infirmary. It was only like 30 minutes left, so I could wait.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
You lived, and that's the important bit.
Aye.
All right, so I think we are ready to go ahead and get into the real meat for today.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome, everyone, back to Lorebeards. We apologize that it's been a little bit. We had I had some issues I had to take care of last week with family medical stuff, but we are all good for this week. So there's quite a bit on the agenda for today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And, of course, the first thing we're going to start is we've already been kind of talking about what we've been up to this week, but let's talk more specifically about what Warhammer stuff we've been up to this week as far as any gaming or hobbyisms or any of that stuff. Nathan, have you been, since the last episode of Lorebeards, I should say, I know you've been filling up some display cases.
Yeah.
But what all have you been up to?
I've been getting all my stuff out of storage, so right now it can't be seen too well, but I've been filling up the case back there, which has got Tomb Kings at the top. It still needs the rest of them. I just don't know where the rest of the box is. At the bottom, I've got some Bretonnians. They finally come out. And just bringing out all the stuff. I found all my Night Goblins and Savage Orcs. Now I just need to find my standard ones. And I've been repainting some Orcs, because at this point I was like, well, if I'm going to start filling it out, there's a lot of boys that I just didn't finish. Grimgore I've stripped down so he can get a nice paint job. And Azag needs to be rebuilt, because unfortunately when he went to storage, the Wyvern unfortunately took a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I mean, that's not unusual.
Yeah.
I mean, Warhammer minis and storage usually don't play nice together.
Yeah. But slowly but surely everything's coming out. I did manage to finish a few boxes, so the shelving unit at the top there is missing a few boxes, because I've managed to finish a Primaris Repulsor, my start collecting Skeletal Hordes, and I think one of the Malignant boxes, because I was just finishing off my Vampire counts and just trying to get rid of that. But slowly but surely, getting back to it. Next week it's all Kriegsmen, though.
Awesome. So, I know you said a good amount of those were coming out of storage. Have you been doing or any of those like things you've been painting specifically or building or anything?
Yeah, so basically I had to put everything on storage because this room was getting redone, and now I'm just trying to bring everything back up. So I'm trying to figure out logistically how I can fit all my Skaven in here, which I don't think is going to happen. Like, I need a room possibly double my size. It's going to be a bit awkward. But I've been trying to finish up some armies, just like all my old world armies need to be completed just in case, so when everything comes out, I've got some stuff ready to like do battle reports and just get some games in. I've been wanting to finish up my Bretonians for a while, so I brought them out first. I've got about 12 questing knights that have just currently been primed to, so they need to be done.
Gotcha.
It's
awesome, dude.
Old metal stuff. That's always fun. But what about you?
I've been good. I have been working a little bit more on my night hunts. I put together a new Lady Allender model because my old one was just I just couldn't stand it anymore. She was like really bent in a few places because I mean if you look at her mini, this is the one that I'm getting this is the one that got all messed up. But like one of her hand broke off, which is just you can see how thin it is.
Yeah.
Even if I repaired it, the odds that it would break again are really, really high. And her staff and you can see that the only thing holding her up is this spot right here, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a really skinny model. So I decided to just get a new one and build it up from scratch. And it looks a lot better and is actually standing straight up as opposed to leaning at a weird angle. So super nice. That and I bought a set of like graves that I'm going to be putting onto some of my models to give them a little bit more. The kind of a upside and a downside with AOS minis is that the bases are significantly larger than they were in Fantasy. So you kind of like need to buy terrain features for your bases. If the minis don't come with a lot of them, just because you just have so much space that'll just be empty otherwise. And, like, if you want it to look nice, you kind of have to add some more stuff on there. Some of the minis will come with, like, a lot of terrain as part of their base, but most of them don't. Yeah, that's what I've been mostly up to. I'm hoping to get a lot more painting done this week. In particular because I actually have another Age of Sigmar tournament coming up. I want to say it's the 18th. I'm pretty sure it's the 18th, which I think is not this Saturday, or not next Saturday, but the one after that.
Yeah.
So that's when my next tournament is, which I'm really, really excited for. For most of the players in my community, it's kind of like their practice tournament for... the Houston Grand Tournament. I think it's Hammerfest is the Houston Grand Tournament, but I'm not going to that, unfortunately. So I'm just, going to go to that so I can get my Texas Masters points in. But speaking of painting minis, which is something that many people hate, but everyone should be doing. Me and Nathan were talking a bit between episodes, and Nathan had a really, really cool idea of introducing kind of a new segment onto Lorebeards that'll be on every episode that also allows for y'all, all the listeners, to actually get involved in the community. So, Nathan, why don't you walk us through the plan?
So, many of you guys have possibly read through White Dwarf and so on, and there's an event that usually pops up called Tale of 4 Gamers, Tale of 3 Gamers, and so on. We're going to take part in that too. And by the way, to people in my community, this will also link up to Paint Your Plastic, where we're going to decide a week before, okay, we're going to do Lords or Lords and Heroes, and we're all going to take part, paint a Lord or Hero option, and we're going to show it off on the podcast, on the live stream, of course, and any VODs. And we're going to take part. We're going to show off your minis too if you take part. And that's just going to be really fun because that way we can all take part in something together. I've not been able to take part a lot in the whole Paint Your Plastic event because obviously we got busy. But this is another incentive for everyone where we can show off your minis. If you've got anything that you're really proud of, this will be a really cool way for everyone just to be together and make it a big community thing. Yeah.
So the way we're going to implement the community aspect is actually make some half-decent use out of Twitter, and we'll probably expand it to Discord as well. But The idea will be that we're basically going to have a Lorebeards hashtag on Twitter. So, you just type in hashtag Lorebeards. And what we'll do is that when it's time for a Lorebeards episode and where you get to this segment, I'll have that opened up so we can bring it up on screen. So whatever mini you've finished or been working on, you can just post it onto Twitter using that hashtag, and it will show up on Lorebeards. So we'll be able to see what the community's been working on. And we may also add that to Discord as well. I'll talk to Nathan about that after stream, and we'll put out an announcement about it. But this will be a great way for y'all to be able to paint some minis and show them off to everybody, and for me to actually do any painting, and for Nathan to make his way through his backlog as well. The goal is also that there will be certain themes. Whenever you submit your mini, it obviously doesn't have to be part of the theme. You can just do whatever you have on your log, or just show off minis that you've painted. But Nathan, what do you think we should start with? What should be the first subject for this Tale of Two Gamers?
So, since we're starting off strong, should we start off with what we would call in fantasy a lord choice? I'm not too sure what it's supposed to be called in 40k because my brain's not working. I've taken a few too many punches today. But like a character, an army leader, that would always be kind of cool. Just a singular mini, get everyone started going with that. Remember, it doesn't have to be immaculately painted. If a HQ choice, yes, a HQ choice. Just as long as it's something that you're proud of. You don't have to be the best painter in the world. Trust me, I'm not. It's just for fun.
What? Oh man. But yeah. So just a hero choice, just like a character.
Yeah.
And it's any hobby. As like it could be 40k, it could be Age of Sigmar, it could be fantasy, it could be whatever. Nobody cares. So hopefully you'll all join us on that. I already know what mini I'm going to be working on.
Same.
And for the record, we won't be. If you want to post pictures, we will show them off. But you will have functionally 2 weeks. But so hopefully we'll be having our next episode of Lorebeards not this Sunday, but next Sunday. Mm-hmm. So that episode we will be showing off anyone that has submitted their stuff. But I probably won't be done with my stuff. So we'll be running here do a hero for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to be able to participate in that, then that would be our that's going to be the theme for that.
I've already picked my mini.
What are you going to go with?
I've got Painbringer from the Gluto set. I've got him on a square base. I want him to be my Slaneshi warlord.
Nice. I think I'm either going to do. I think I'm going to do my either a Knight of Shrouds, or if I can really get the balls, I think I might go ahead and try and paint Lady Hollander.
Both are good choices.
I don't know. It scares me. But yeah. So that's all what we're going to be working on. And we really hope that y'all participate. Once again, the hashtag will be hashtag Lorebeards if you're on Twitter. And we will probably open up some Discord channels for people that just, think Twitter's cancer, don't want to deal with it, which is totally understandable. But I think that's pretty much it for that and intro type stuff. So let's head into today's actual first topic, which is we're going to talk Warhammer games, but not Warhammer games that most of you are probably playing. We're actually going to be talking about less well-known Warhammer games that we think should be more well-known. Games that we would heavily recommend for everyone to try out and kind of give you a pitch of it as well. And I'll have something cool to show off at the end of this regarding something related to the topic. But let's start with Nathan. What game or games? But let's start with one. Would you really recommend that's Warhammer themed for people who you just think it's underrated?
One I've been playing a lot lately, and it's a shame it doesn't get more attention, is Gladius. Basically Civilization, but Warhammer 40k. The devs are fantastic. The publisher is great, right? They really care about what they release. And the game is just really, really fun. I've done a lot of scenarios where I've played like with people like Linksy, and we do 2 versus 14 AI and just basically try and survive, which we normally fail. But it's a great game, and it deserves a lot more love. I think they've been hinting about a sequel too. So I really, really hope that it picks up, because it's just such a fun game with all these different mechanics. The campaign itself is just so open. It's very sandboxy. Think of it like Total War, but Civilization style. And there's so many different choices of races and stuff. And modding, the modding community is so on the ball. It's like, that I know one modder is trying to bring in Imperial Knights, and they look so good.
So what, off the top of your head, what are like the races available?
You can play as Orcs, Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Tau, Eldar. There's a few others, I think. Necrons are overpowered. Tyranids too. They're just really, really fun. A little bit of everything.
Tyranids?
Yeah, Tyranids are really fun. You get to eat the planet.
I might need to try that out.
I
haven't played Gladius.
Oh, dude, you should. Like, with Nids, you can actually eat the terrain, so it's inhospitable. It's like, it's great.
Wow, that's funny.
It is honestly super, super good. One of my favorite games, like, when you just want to chill, you've got, like, some background music and so on. It's so good. Like, the soundtrack is great and everything, and it is... And, the great thing is it's not like a basic turn-based where if you click end turn, it goes through all the different races and factions one by one. The AI is done in such a way that they all act in one go.
Okay.
So it's really, really good, and it's got a fast end time. It's just really, 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 really good.
When it comes to like the battle system, is it like Civilization, where it's just kind of like you click a unit, they go onto a tile, and those two just fight for a second, and then it kind of like does the math?
Yeah, it's very much like Civ. The thing is, obviously, since it's Warhammer, you have to deal with a lot of different aspects. Like, for example, if you play Imperial Guard and you've got basilisks, you can bombard them from really far away. Not everyone has the same option for bases in terms of base playstyle too. So, for example, Space Marines only get one base, whereas with Imperial Guard, you can just play like a guardsman and just build up fortifications everywhere and just constantly try to outswarm your enemy. Range comes into effect. You've got flyers too. I think a pretty big amount of the 8th edition armies are there in terms of roster, so you've got a lot of variety too.
Okay, well that's great. Okay, awesome. Well, you know what? I think I will actually check that out. Very, very soon. Yeah, because I know the devs behind it are very proactive. Honestly, now that I think about it, if we had probably messaged them, there might have been we might have been able to offer a discount or something, but that slipped my mind. But we'll remember that for the future.
Yeah.
So for my game, the game that I would actually heavily recommend to people that I play a lot, especially recently, is Warhammer Underworlds. Warhammer Online. Wait, I think it's Warhammer Underworlds Online, I think is the full title. Yeah. So for anyone unaware, Warhammer Underworlds is a kind of like a side game by Games Workshop that was made for Age of Sigmar, where you basically get these like little squads. They're called warbands that they are all like named characters with like little histories and stuff. Which is so they're not just like generic dudes. They're like lovingly created models that have all these really cool little thematic elements to them. And most races in Age of Sigmar now have one. But the video game is basically just a digital version. I mean, it's literally just the tabletop game brought into a digital format. So the characters like move around and attack and make noise and stuff. But it is a stupidly fun game that is now very, very cheap and easy to get into, especially because you can buy the game insanely cheap, and it only comes with 2 warbands at the start, but then you just do a la carte. Like, you just get the warbands you want. All of the warbands are in the game, so you can fight anybody regardless of what DLC you own. And you also have all the cards, which actually makes it significantly cheaper than its physical version. Not, just because the actual physical version is infinitely more expensive. I think like every warband is the size of the price of a game because Games Workshop. But normally the way it works in person is the cards are locked to certain warbands. So like if you want a certain card for your warband of like, it doesn't matter what warband you're playing because every box comes with like universal cards. So even if I just played like the Lizardman warband, I would still need to buy most of the other warbands to get all the cards that I would want to make a certain kind of deck, per se. Which is not a horrible business practice, because at least there's not like a random element to like the card element of the game, like card packs. But it is annoying because it can make it very expensive. But the video game completely removes all of that.
Yeah.
The game is really solid. It's updated on a very regular basis. There's usually a large free LC update every 2 to 3 months. And they've been adding warbands fairly consistently. They very recently finished adding all of the Season 1 warbands. So I want to say there's like 12 or somewhere between 12 and 14 warbands in the game now. Not every race is in yet. Obviously, like I said, they've just finished Season 1, and they've done 2 of the Season 2 warbands. And in the tabletop, we're about to go into Season 5. So they got. I don't think they're ever going to be able to catch up, but they're trying. And I would heavily recommend it. It's a great game. The bots are reasonably fun to play against. Literally, the game's only downside is that it's at its best when you have lots of human players to play against.
Yeah. And
the game's population isn't great at the moment, because I think the game's initial launch struggled a bit. In that the game, because they launched it with like a handful of warbands instead of just 2, the game was a little pricey for what it was. Now it's much more appropriately priced because it only comes with 2 warbands, and then you just buy the ones you want, which I find to be a much better business model. So if you haven't, please consider checking that game out. It's on sale a lot. They do a ton of sales, and the certain specific warbands also go on sale a lot of the time.
Yeah.
All the warbands have unique skins. Tons of skins. I think at minimum every warband has like 6 different color schemes that you can try out, and it's just a really fun tactical game that's got a lot of really interesting elements to it. It's like a tile-based tactics game where you're trying to capture objectives, kill the enemy player, while also dealing with drawing cards from decks, and there's dice rolling as well. So it's got a lot of different elements, and it's a really fun strategy game. I literally play it every day for about 1 to 2 hours. But yeah,
it's a great game, and like you said, it's the tabletop just 1-to-1 translated with a few extra quality of life changes. It is really, really good.
Kitty cat, show the cat.
There's one. That's Ninja. I can't pick him up unless you want to see me bleed.
Oh.
But like, actually, I think this is the first time anyone on my stream has actually seen Ninja. Ninja, come. No, he doesn't want it today.
he just knows Lorebeards is that important.
Yeah. See,
now we've both got our pet on stream sitting in the exact spot. And for anyone, again, it was Warhammer Underworlds was that game. Any other games that you wanted to discuss? I mean, I think just kind of doing one each is good for now. We can always approach this subject another day.
Yeah.
But before we move on to the next topic, I do actually have something kind of cool to show you guys, and I'll have more links about it. So I'm going to have it up on my stream for a minute. But I've got these screenshots that you may note are from a very popular game called Minecraft. Unless you're like really old or not with it. I've never played Minecraft, but I know what it is. And I was recently contacted by a group that is trying to, totally not super ambitiously, but and what I actually mean is super ambitiously recreate the Warhammer Fantasy world in Minecraft, which is just ludicrous. They've already made quite a bit of progress, I think, on Altdorf and a couple of other cities. Apparently it's going really well, but they kind of wanted me to put the word out for anyone that's interested in joining their community. It's open to anyone that wants to join in. I will have the appropriate links so that you can join their Discord if you want, or find a way to hop into that and help if you're really into Minecraft and you want to be a part of that community. They're literally accepting anyone and everyone that wants to help. So just wanted to give them a shout out, and I will have all the links for that after the stream on my Twitter, and I'm sure Nathan will retweet it, so that anyone that wants to be a part of that can join it. And so that should be super fun.
I mean, it's very ambitious. Are they trying to do like 1-for-1 or?
I believe it is 1-for-1.
Jeez.
And to my understanding, they've already made at least a couple major cities. So they didn't even reach out to me until they had made some significant progress. And I intend to take a tour of it. I don't think I'm gonna be in their building, but I would certainly love to walk around and see it. But
insane.
Yeah, it is insane. It is absolutely insane. When they sent it to me, I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's a super ambitious idea, but that's kind of crazy." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we've already made like here's some screenshots." It was like, "Oh my god!" But I mean, there are people that have built like, Middle Earth and Harry Potter and all that other stuff 1-to-1 already.
I've seen the Middle Earth one. It's beautiful. Oh, there's the other cat.
Yeah. Oh, there's another cat.
See, this one I can show. This one I can show.
This is getting out of hand. Now there's 2 of them.
This one's the nice one.
He does seem completely uncaring about his circumstances.
Oh yeah, I can literally put him around my neck, and he'll literally be very happy there. Whoa. Right, let's put you down there.
Awesome. Good. So it's officially a pet stream. All the pets have. Oh, you awake? Chloe's like, I can hear him talking about me. I'm leaving. But so yeah, that should be really fun and interesting to see how that develops in the future. And if we get any major updates, I'll bring them up somewhere. All right, it is now time for everyone's favorite whatever subject. We've got a who would win discussion. Another one for this week. And this one I saw mentioned, I think on my Discord, and I was like, oh, that one actually looks super duper fun. So we're going to start with today's Who Would Win episode, which is going to be Taurux, the Brass Bull, one of the most recent new characters added to Warhammer, versus Grimgor Ironhide, the dead artist Black Orc we've ever seen. So, pretty interesting matchup here, where you have these 2 insanely heavily armored characters, both wielding like large weapons. Grimgor with his big 2-handed axe Gitstick, and he of course has his I'm drawing a blank. What is this stupid armor called? Is it the it's not the blood rot armor, is it? No, it's the can't remember what his armor's called off the top of my head. But it is very, very tough.
Yeah.
And adds to his already absurd toughness as an orc. Going up against Taurux the Brass Bull, who of course has his twin axes that are nasty pieces of work. Big flaming axes blessed from corn. And he's got a body made out of brass, which makes him functionally invincible unless he gets just absolutely pulverized by something. And even then, we're not... Oh, it's blood forged armor. Oh, thank you, Chad. I was close. I used too fancy of a word. That was my fault. So, Nathan, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Like, what kind of comes to mind when you're thinking of these 2 titans of melee going up against each other?
I'm thinking the immovable force meets the unstoppable object, in a sense,
Yeah, except for they're almost kind of both immovable forces and unstoppable objects at the same time.
Yeah, like both are really, really powerful fighters. This might be tough because, like, is this pre or post blessing for Taurux?
So we're going to use Taurux as, the character would appear in like as Taurux the Brass Bull. So this is right. Taurux with his brass body. He does still have the big glaring weak spot on his neck,
right?
Which is traditionally the only way to kill him. But it kind of comes down to if you think Grimgor's strong enough to pierce it, that's an argument. What are your thoughts on kind of like the strengths and weaknesses they'd be bringing to the party? Maybe we should start there.
Well, Torox doesn't traditionally tire now ever since he got turned into brass, so he would have the benefit of that. Grimgor, on the other hand, likes a good fight, so he's stubborn as hell, and he'll stay there as much as he has to. I don't think there's really any time in lore where he's had to retreat.
The only time Grimgor was forced to retreat is when his army abandoned him. Yeah. When he fought against... he fought Archaon's lieutenant, or his Archaon's herald, whose name starts with a V, Vardek Krom.
Right.
So Vardek Krom was able to kind of like duel Grimgor to a standstill, but by duel to a standstill, we more accurately mean that he was able to essentially hold Grimgor in place for like hours, just like not getting killed. He couldn't hurt Grimgor, but he was just not allowing Grimgor to kill him until his army routed Grimgor's army, because obviously orcs and goblins are a little prone to inferior tactics, especially because Grimgor himself is not much of a tactician. And Grimgor soon found himself alone against a gigantic army of warriors of chaos and was like, all right, I gotta go. But even then, they weren't able to kill him or capture him. He just fought his way free. I think Vardek Krom realized that killing Grimgor was not really in the cards. Just getting Grimgor out of the way was the best case scenario.
I don't know, man, because out of the two, right, I really like Grimgor. I think he's just hilariously stupid that it kind of works. And I think that he could figure out there's a weak spot.
So I will say that as far as strengths and weaknesses go for both of the characters, they're both super duper tough. Grimgor's blood-forged armor is extremely durable. There are very few cases of it being penetrated. They do exist, but and there are, I think Torox's axes would be more than capable of cutting through it and dealing Grimgor some damage. But even once you get through his armor, he's still literally the biggest, baddest black orc there is.
Yeah.
And he's tough. He can take damage. While on the other hand, Torox is completely made out of brass. And it's God-blessed brass. It's not like our brass. It's something different. But whether or not Grimgor's axe that could penetrate it, that kind of depends on your interpretations. I personally don't think Gitsnick would be able to chop through Torox's flesh. However, when it comes to strength and weaknesses, the thing that Grimgor has that a lot of people forget is that Grimgor is fast. He's like freakishly fast, which a lot of people don't think about because it's not something you would associate looking at him, right? He just kind of looks like he's this big brawler. But one of the things that Grimgor has going for him is that Gitsnick is not a orcs and goblins made weapon. It's a chaos dwarf weapon that Grimgor improved with orc and goblin kind of appearance. And the thing that it does is it allows Grimgor to attack so fast that it is nearly impossible for like a human to follow the weapon with their eyes because it's that quick. Torox, on the other hand, his I think they're the rune etched axes or something like that. There's two of them, which is great, and they are on fire, which is also great, and they are good for just cleaving through pretty much anything that gets in his way. But I think it kind of comes down to would Grimgor be smart enough to eventually figure out that there's this not giant, but noticeable. When it comes to talking about the rune-forged axes, thank you, chat. Thank God for chat. When Total War Warhammer is the only time we've ever seen Torox given an official design.
Yeah.
Like we have black and white artwork of him, but the black and white artwork is just like his head. And like you could see like his axes because it's that kind of art where he's almost like this in view. So it kind of comes down to that if we use Total War's version, that wound is pretty noticeable. That weak spot on his, it's literally like a giant flaming hole, which Grimgor would probably be like, I'm gonna bury my axe right in that spot. But But, Grimgor also doesn't wear a helmet, but I also don't think that hurts him that much. I mean, the dude literally headbutts so hard he can destroy the Eye of Shirian with his forehead, which is like one of the most powerful artifacts of the Dark Gods. Pretty sure Grimgor could headbutt Tarax and Tarax would feel it. So, kind of with all that in mind, if you had to call out a winner, if you had to pick a character and you're like, this is the guy that's going to land a killing blow and walk away with it, who would you pick?
I'd say Grimgor, because if Grimgor can pin down Torox, you've seen those stereotypical type of Spanish matador art where they hold down the bull by the neck and so on.
Yeah.
Like that. Just hold it down and rip the head off, because he's a strong dude. He just needs to stick his fingers into that weak spot and pull. It's kind of like one of those things where you just expect
Whoa,
it to happen.
hey. This is family friendly. You can't.
Well, I think that works, right? I think like he could do it. Like a lot of people don't there's a big part in Grimgor's lore which shows off how fast and how strong he is when he goes near Hellpit and Clan Moulder send their forces to them to meet him head on. He's constantly fighting. Like the dude can keep up with Skaven, right? Minotaur is going to be much more sluggish.
Yeah, that's true. Tarax is definitely not going in there with a speed advantage. So, and I think you do have an excellent point in that, like, Grimgor has killed a ridiculous number of things when it comes to he's killed vampires. He literally killed so much out of Hellpit that Hellpit ran out of stuff to throw at him. They didn't have any more rat ogres or Hellpit abominations or anything. They were just like, oh crap, this guy's gonna kill us, and he got bored and left. You do have a great point in that Grimgor does kind of specialize against fighting big monsters, and has a big history. And but in defense of Tarax is kind of well designed as probably one of the biggest threats to go up against Grimgor, and that you have this character that can only be killed a specific way, who also is a big mean melee juggernaut. Blessed by Khorne, and the two of them, neither of them are going to get tired. The whole point of Tarax's blessing is that he can't get tired, because that's the original way he died, is he died of exhaustion. And that's why Khorne gave him that body of brass as a reward, but it also means that he can't go down that way anymore. So I think you have a great point in that Grimgor could easily walk away with a win, as far as like he has vastly superior speed. He's not an idiot. Like Grimgor is stupid if you want to pick subjects that he would not excel at. But I think when it comes to battle, he actually can be very intelligent, as far as like trying to find a weakness to his opponents. But I also don't think that Tarax would necessarily just give him such a good opportunity or a good opening. So I'm going to be contrarian on this opinion. I'm actually going to go for Tarax in the matchup. I think that while Grimgor has the capability to land that killing blow, and definitely would happen in a number of like hypothetical scenarios where they're fighting, I think Tarax has a much easier time to bring down Grimgor, and that all he has to do is just kind of keep bringing his axes down over and over and over, and just keep landing those hits. And I think Grimgor would be too busy trying to block. And also, Tarax does have weight on him. Not by much, but I think by enough. So we have... I think that's a great... I think it's a good matchup when you could feel confident about either person walking away. I'm actually going to do... I'm just curious what my chat's going to say. I'm going to do a quick poll for them.
We'll do a poll.
Yeah.
Just
you can do polls on YouTube now, too, so you should do a poll as well.
Can I?
So, yeah. I think you just... I don't know how to do it, though. I haven't streamed on YouTube since they added the feature.
Oh, I'll figure it out. We've got a friend in chat just popped up saying, Bretonia is the best, screw everything else. Our good friend, Chapter Master Valrak.
How tell that tell Shill Master to get the hell out of here. He's too busy shilling for the lady.
Hey Valrak, lovely to see you, bro. I'm gonna try and figure out how to do this this poll. Oh, I found it.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we could both do a poll. I think just for Valrak, we'll have to do a Bretonnia character next episode.
We will. We definitely will.
I love your sweet face, Valrak. Thanks for last night. But all right, chat, polls up. I'm curious how both of our chats are gonna turn that out. But yeah, like I think this matchup would be super fun. Like if someone out there like is really good at fan fiction or enjoys writing fan fiction or is an animator or something, or even just is an artist, I would love to see an artist do the picture you were talking about, like Grimgor holding Tarex by the horns.
That would be cool.
In like a Matador fight. That would be super cool looking.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, if anybody's an artist and wants to take a whack at that, we would be thrilled to show that on stream or something. Oof. In my chat, it is a landslide. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, Grimgor is currently at 70%.
Yeah, Grimgor is at 75% on mine. So yeah, Grimgor is coming out heavy in the arguments, which I think is totally fair.
We got a lot of gits in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just gonna blame it. I'm just gonna blame it on fanboyism. That's the only reason.
I mean, he is a big boy, right? In anything he's done in lore, the dude's there. He's got big balls, man.
That's very true. So yeah, I don't even need to see the rest of this poll. All right, so chat has decreed that Grimgor wins by a landslide. So all right, so from there. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic for today. So, as always, I wouldn't say that Lorebeards is primarily focused on Total War, but Total War is a significant part of what we do, and is a significant part of the Warhammer community. Even for people that don't play fantasy, people that play Age of Sigmar or even 40K, Total Warhammer is still a significant part of what a lot of people are up to these days. And it's kind of one of the hearts of the community in a lot of way. So we're probably going to talk about it every episode for whatever reason. But for today, one of the things we wanted to talk about are legendary heroes.
Yeah.
So anyone that has been on my channel knows that I think legendary heroes are easily one of the least are one of the best features that Total War has not used nearly enough of.
By far.
Yeah, it is something that Creative Assembly has kind of fought us on since the beginning, which I don't know why, but they are slowly getting better about it. I would say that for me personally, one of the biggest and only major disappointments with the last DLC and free LC was that there were no legendary heroes.
Yeah.
Which was a huge disappointment and a massive mark against it. And, it really feels like one of those things that every time there's a major content drop, there needs to be some kind of legendary hero included within it.
Yeah.
Especially because we went practically to almost basically 1.5 games with virtually zero legendary heroes. The one exception being Krell, who wasn't a real legendary hero. He's a summon.
Yeah.
Which works for him, but is also a controversial thing within the community. So for today, we're going to talk about legendary heroes, in that me and Nathan are both going to pick a single character from the lore or the tabletop or whatever, and talk about why we would want them implemented as the next. Oh yeah, the Green Knight too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and Henry the Massif, he's one, isn't he?
Kinda, yeah. Not to the same extent as the others, but we'll give them half points.
Yeah.
But so Nathan, if you'll start us off, if you could pick any one character, and we will limit it to races that are available in Total War 1 and 2. So we're going to leave out Kislev, Cathay, and all those guys.
All right.
So if you had to pick a single character to bring in as a legendary hero, let's say you could have them fully developed to your satisfaction by tomorrow, who would you bring in, and what would you want their role to be? What would be their major features?
Right, people are going to hate me for this because it's going to be a vampire and it's another Von Carstein. But I really want Conrad, man. I love the Mad Dog of Sylvania, right? Like, he's awesome. He's a terrifying, absolutely terrifying guy in the lore. Like, he's essentially a rabid dog. And, you know, he always had a cool model. It's just one of those characters which I think would have really done well for a legendary hero slot, because the dude is just vicious. And, you know, considering the fact that Creative Assembly do have a Von Carstein bias, why not?
You say that like Games Workshop doesn't have a Von Carstein bias.
Oh, no, definitely. But, like, he's a cool character. It would have been cool to have something like a blood meter, where he just... kind of like what Khorne has been described to have in Game 3, where the more damage you do, the stronger you get, in a sense. And like,
that would be cool.
Exactly. Like, just imagine just throwing him into a horde of Skaven and just, like, letting him do his thing, you know? Like,
yeah, I actually think that would work really, really well for him, and, like, be fairly balanced as well, of the idea of, like, okay, you throw Conrad into combat, he starts blendering. You know, for anyone that played tabletop in the earlier editions, the vampire count, the blender vampire is a staple.
Yeah.
Like, for multiple editions, it was a thing. Like, I don't know about prior to 6th edition, but like 6th edition through 8th edition, the blender vampire was always a thing.
it's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely bullshit model with bullshit rules, but totally broken design. But I think that would be awesome, just having Connor, like, you throw him into combat and he literally just starts killing, and for every kill he gets, you know, he gets like a bonus to his weapon strength.
That would just be so fun. Like, I would love that character.
Yeah, and if you're playing against him, you know, you just got to make sure that he's either fighting elite stuff, so he's taking significant damage for the amount of kills he's getting, or just keep him out of combat, or try and kill him early so he doesn't snowball. Are there any other, like, features you think would be good for him, either like on the campaign map or something else you think he'd do in battle?
I'd say probably a little boost to Blood Knights, because you kind of had them.
That's fair.
Some elite
That's fair.
units. Campaign wise, I think that he should give a negative in some way, because obviously this dude kills pretty much anything that's around him. So I'd say a little bit increased upkeep to justify the fact that you're bringing someone who's terrifyingly strong. So increased upkeep to Blood Knights, I'd say, too. Make them stronger because they have to be strong to be near him, because he'll turn around and attack them, but also increase their upkeep, because you want to make sure that they are the best of the best to be around him and be able to hold him back, in a sense. You know, kind of like when you see those movies where they bring in this absolute frothing monster and they've got him chained up and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, maybe that you could do something like maybe give him the debuff of Rampage.
Yes.
You know, where if he gets instead of maybe like coming with like a genuine penalty towards allies, maybe you could just make it where he's got, you know, you have the system of if he gets too low on health, he just goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, which we know, you know, a lot of people hate Rampage, but it is a very appropriate mechanic. And maybe there could be something in his skill tree, like when he hits like level 20 or something, where you could spend a skill point and kind of get him under control.
I mean,
but you know, that could be that could be really fun, of having that that notable debuff where he does that. You know, and maybe there could be something like you know, for your idea, there could be something like how Quick Headtaker has penalties for like Grey Seers.
Yeah.
Maybe Conrad could have like a penalty for other vampire heroes because he like threatens them.
Heroes or spellcasters, because he hates necromancers, doesn't he?
No, he like Conrad's thing was that he needed the necromancers.
Right.
So like they were the only people he was nice to because he was so desperate to keep them around, because Conrad can't use magic.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he works as a legendary hero, but he does not work as a legendary lord.
Yeah.
Because a vampire count lord without magic would just be garbage. There's literally no way around it. Yeah, maybe it could be like he like lowers the experience rate or increases the upkeep for vampire heroes in his army, but maybe improves the experience or buffs like necromancer heroes or a master necromancer lord. That could be really funny.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a huge deal, but it could be like an amusing.
Yeah, it's because
Conrad did kill a ton of vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Conrad literally ripped one of his own siblings limb from limb, literally, because he's just that much of an ass.
He's a great character, honestly.
He's great, yeah. And plus, his design is so iconic. Like, plus, if they put him in the game, if he doesn't have an animation where he licks his sword, I would want an immediate refund.
Oh yeah, because he's got that thing like that, doesn't he?
He's got that iconic pose where he's like drinking the blood off of his sword, which is just absolutely incredible. I agree that would be super duper fun and would be such a cool way to really further incentivize just really fun mechanics. And they could even have it where maybe if you play as Vlad, you get Conrad immediately, at the start of the game.
Yes.
But if you play as any of the other characters, maybe you gotta spend a certain amount of blood kisses to unlock him or something.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That just sounds awesome.
No, I absolutely agree. Conrad is definitely in my top 5. I think because he's just such a cool character and fits that legendary hero niche so well, better than almost anybody else. My pick though, I actually would have to go just because his design is one of my favorite designs in Warhammer Fantasy or any fantasy universe ever. I have to go with Chakax the Eternity Warden. Chakax is just such a brilliant, beautiful design of just this hulking Saurus with this giant stegodon helmet. So he almost looks like he's almost a different species of lizard man because he's got this huge helmet with horns on it. And he's like the ultimate bodyguard. He is literally the best bodyguard in all of Warhammer Fantasy, bar none.
Yeah.
Who's been around for thousands of years, carries this giant hulking two-handed mace made out of, meteors and shit. And I would love to see him implemented as just a god tier bodyguard, where you have this character who has instead of just having the Guardian aura, he could have the Prime Guardian aura. So maybe instead of I think Guardian's a 15 or 20% physical resistance.
Yeah.
Maybe for him it's a 15 or 20% ward save, where he's just just stupid, and you need to kill him or get him away from other characters in order to bust him up. And just have it where he has really cool abilities. I think another thing would be making sure that his helmet, the helm of the Prime Guardian. So right now in Total Warhammer, Lizardmen have Saurus have something called Predatory Senses, which means that they have a larger detection range for stealth units. For Chakax, I would have him also have a slightly larger range, but his is guaranteed. So even if Skaven decide to use smoke bombs or something that traditionally makes them unspottable, Chakax just ignores the unspottable rule if you're within range of his detection. So he's really, really good. If someone decides to run Skaven Clan Eshin or something, and they've got Death Runners, Chakax at 100 or 200 meters is just boom, I see you. It's just I know you're there. I think that would be super cool.
I do like the character.
And the other thing I would really like for him is so in tabletop he had this super annoying rule because he had a key to the Eternity Chamber, which is the key to where the Slaughterer are at their most vulnerable, and he would watch over them. And the way it worked in tabletop that was super annoying for people is that if he got into a duel with a character, he would make them always strike last, so they fought at the same time as him.
Yes.
And he would disable their magic weapons.
I remember that.
Which was just brutal. So what I would do for Chakax is give him a rule where, as a passive for his key, whenever he hits someone, he resets, he adds like 5 or 10 seconds to their ability recharge. So like even if they have a character who has like really cool like combat abilities, every time Chalkhawk smacks them, he just adds on like 5 seconds.
Ouch.
So they just can't use their abilities as long as Chalkhawk is hitting them. But like, and if that sounds super overpowered, it's a little nasty. But the trick for Chalkhawk, I think, would to make him very slow.
Yeah.
In that he can't take any mounts. He can only walk around on foot, and he's moving Saurus speed the entire time. Maybe even make him a little bit slower because he's more worried about like guarding a Slaawn than he is about doing anything else. And of course, the Starstone Mace, you just let him have really high AP and maybe give it some kind of bonus. But
correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't the Packmaster, or was it the Packmaster or the Chieftain, have some special thing when near Queek? Was it Packmaster? Was it the Chieftain or something? Not the Chieftain.
What do you mean by?
What
do you mean by special thing?
Like increases, or am I thinking of SFO?
You're probably thinking of SFO.
I probably am, yeah. But there was this thing where you could get a Skaven Chieftain, which increases up the capabilities of Queek. So maybe if Chakax is in an army in the same army as a Slaawn, the Slaawn gets a better ward save. Kind of like he's taking the damage.
Yeah, I mean, that could work too. Or have it as a passive. I think that type of skill exists in the game on a skill sheet. But that's definitely something that could be done a bit, is have like maybe Chalkhawk has a skill you can unlock, or he just has like a campaign passive where that way it's not affecting like multiplayer per se, where he joins an army that has a whatever the Lord is, but like especially if it's a Slaawn, he just gives them like a flat ward save for just being in the army.
Yeah.
But that would definitely have to be campaign only versus just because I could see that being absolutely insane. Especially with like, could you imagine you like throw him in an army with Lord Mazdamundi on Slack and he's like, flat ward save just for being here. I think you would definitely want it to be like tied to how close Chalkhawk is, like something that isn't super far away. But so yeah, I think any of those, and of course there's so many characters that would be wonderful to see brought into the game. Where like with Beastman, a lot of people wanted to see Moonclaw. Moonclaw has definitely become a fan favorite, which I am really pleased about, and I hope that means he'll, eventually make it in someday. There are other super popular characters, like a lot of people want to see Ludwig Schwarzhelm for the Empire, especially because he would bring in but only if they gave him a banner. They can't pull the bullshit they did with Rapunzel. I'm still salty about what they did to Rapunzel, where she doesn't get to actually carry her banner.
He needs that massive banner. I mean, there's a mod for Rapunzel which is really good, which adds the banner. Yeah,
but I want to see it just be in the main game. Yeah. Like for Rapunzel, I wouldn't even be mad if Creative Assembly just made it where she has like a back banner, so like she just has a pole behind her that, or like especially when she's on her horse that has the banner. But like the fact that she doesn't have a banner on her model is absolutely criminal. But yeah. So I think, is there anything else you wanted to add as far as like legendary heroes or thoughts on that?
I mean, all I really want to say is I hope that Creative Assembly do expand upon that, because I think they did it really well in the Twisted and the Twilight.
Yeah, I think Twisted and the Twilight was the best Lord Pack, period.
Yeah, like it was just so good, and I was like, when it came to Silence of the Fury, I was like really hoping it's like, because we got told the name when they announced it in Skulls. And we're like, maybe there's going to be a legendary hero. We only got half the trailer. Maybe they're going to show something. And then, no. It's like, they could have brought in like Moonclaw, like you said, or, someone like Chakax, but yeah, I guess it's probably because it's the late lifespan of Warhammer 2, and they want to bother with, like, they want to focus on Warhammer 3, so they don't want to do that. Plus, they did spoil us with units, let's be honest. Like,
Yeah, and it's only fair to say that the dwarfs also ate a significant amount of the development time and budget and stuff. Like, because we didn't get a legendary hero, but we did get like a legendary lord for another race, plus just like a complete like 2 reworks, because we got a dwarf rework and a beastman rework.
Yeah, like some people did complain in my community, and I told them like, look, we got spoiled by units because we were all expecting the Gorgon, but I don't think everyone was expecting the Gorgon and the Jabberslife and the Kotal and this and that. You know, it was a good pack. It was a really good DLC.
Yeah, like it was. If you compare it against other Lord packs, it definitely is one of the better ones. It obviously did have a couple of issues, but you know, it's also Grave Assembly, and there's always issues. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and then we have one last thing on the agenda, which is something that I think everyone is super crazy excited about, and we are both definitely included in that. And it's something we're going to discuss a bit today as kind of the final topic for today, depending on time. And that is that it's September. It is September 3rd, which means that we are officially in Cathay month. Creative Assembly already confirmed last month that sometime this month, the month of September, Creative Assembly is going to be revealing Cathay, as well as numerous new gameplay features. So we're going to spend a bit today talking about our thoughts as far as like what we hope for, what we expect, and all of those kinds of things. So Nathan, what are kind of what are your starting thoughts as far as that Cathay is literally just around a corner? I mean, it could be next week for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited because we have to think about it this way, especially as you and myself and a lot of people watching the stream were old guard in terms of Warhammer Fantasy. We had a lot of little tidbits of lore coming in every now and then about Cathay, mostly in the RPG series, but we've not seen much, and a lot of us have always been asking for this. So I'm really curious to see how they're going to be represented. Are they going to follow a specific dynasty pattern from China? Because obviously they're going to have to keep the real world stuff into it, because then it wouldn't be Warhammer if it wasn't. I'm curious. This is a near enough a blank slate, and the GW are involved. So what are we going to see? Like, I'm expecting really cool, fantastical stuff, and maybe I'm setting myself up with disappointment, but I want to see old lore stuff, which we may or may not see, like Terracotta Warriors, Jade Vampires. You know, it's this weird thing where I am just sitting here waiting.
Yeah, I agree on a lot of those points. You know, it's super weird because this is going to be literally the first time that we've ever headed into a race where we got nothing. Like we have no idea what to expect. You know, even for the Vampire Coast, we had most of the roster already well established.
Yeah.
And even the things they added were just things. A lot of the vast majority of it was just from the Monstrous Arcanum and stuff like that. There wasn't a lot of like genuinely new things. This is the first time ever for Total War Warhammer where we are heading into a scenario where anything is possible.
Yeah. And
we literally have nothing to draw on other than just Chinese history. And the idea of like how Warhammer interprets ancient history. Mm-hmm. Which is super exciting, but I would also agree kind of nerve-wracking at the same time, because that also leaves like a lot of room for expectations not to be met.
Exactly.
Compared to other things. You know, like when it's like, oh, Lizardmen are coming out. Well, okay, I know what Lizardmen means. Cathay, I don't know what that means. And then it's like we know there's going to be dragons. For like we know for a fact, like they've already kind of almost called it. I forget what the phrasing they used, but when they put out a forum post about it, you know, they basically said like, oh, they're known for dragons. So like we're definitely going to see those serpentine Eastern style dragons, but we really don't know a lot besides that, I agree that Terracotta Warriors, I feel, is like a guarantee, but they might not be there, which would be weird.
Exactly.
So, it's kind of this bizarre scenario for us where, obviously the best thing we can say and recommend to anyone is have no expectations. But that's pretty hard for most people, and kind of spoils the fun of hype, where, a lot of the fun is trying to guess what's going to be coming out. And it's going to be interesting because Cathay is one of the only non-chaos human factions that has the opportunity to really be this really crazy thing of men and monsters. Where one of the big things about Bretonnia and the Empires, they have no monsters outside of like the big lords, where it's like, oh, we have like hippogriffs and griffins, and those are only for lords. They're not like traditional units. Well, at least until Bretonnia got royal riders and later on. But for Cathay, like, you have all these crazy opportunities of, we know there's going to be a lot of dragons, though who knows what a lot is. It could just be they're like, okay, there is a single dragon type, or maybe there's going to be multiple dragon types. But it's going to be fascinating to see where they go with it. And you're right in that one of the other things that I think it's probably, unfortunately, just going to lead to people being disappointed is that because Cathay is so mysterious and so old, there's a lot of like almost what I would call sub-factions within Cathay that people want to see represented in some way, but I just struggle to see represented well. And like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to see like Tzeentchian cults. But with Cathay trying kind of being like one of the order factions in the game seems very unlikely. Or you have like people like, oh, I want like the monkey beastmen, which is possible, with like Sun Wukong and stuff. But we don't know how that would be represented. Whether it's like, would Sun Wukong be like just a beastman, or would he be Tzeentchian in influence, or would he be like a genuine Cathay type creature?
Yeah, just
like
true neutral.
Yeah, like kind of a more natural creature that just kind of just lives around there, and is like gotten very powerful on his own. A lot of people like the concept of the Jade Vampires. Jade Vampires have become a very popular sub faction within recent times. But when you look at Jade Vampires, it's like, well, how would that work? Are Jade Vampires meant to be vampire counts that live in Cathay, or are they like units that people want Cathay to have access to, which would be very different? Or are people wanting them to be like vampire counts but with unique designs, so like basically be like another Vampire Coast situation? There's a lot of questions up in the air. And one thing you brought up earlier that I absolutely agree with is I think one of the biggest things it depends on is what dynasties are they going to be looking at.
Yeah. Where
like if you want to, like, the thing about Warhammer is that Warhammer occupies kind of a weird space, and that even when a race or culture is interpreted to be brought into Warhammer, they very rarely pull from like a single time in history.
Yeah.
Often it's like kind of a mix where you have a lot of, just the idea that you have the Empire and Bretonnia both existing as neighbors, despite their massive differences in technology. Like already that throws people for a loop that maybe are not used to the Warhammer world, where, like I think some of the most popular lore questions tend to be stuff like, why don't Norska or Bretonnia use guns when guns are so good? And it's like, well, the actual answer is different than the lore answer. Like, the lore answer is just kind of some hand-wavy bullshit. But, like, the actual answer is that, like, they just didn't want that theme.
Yeah.
They didn't want all the armies to be the same. Because in our world, the idea is that if someone has a form of technology, generally everyone's going to try and catch up to that form of technology and use it.
Yeah.
So that everyone's on the same playing field. In fantasy, that's a really boring way to handle things.
Yeah.
If everybody has guns, then there's nothing really different about them. But at least from like a kind of fantastical perspective. Obviously, like I don't want to like piss off any like historical fans in the community that like really, because I know there are people that just like love all the different kinds of like tanks and stuff from World War One or what have you.
No, but you make a lot of sense there, because obviously then you have to take into effect, like you said, when it comes to Bretonnia and the Empire has a lot of gunpowder and stuff like that, but Bretonnia has the Blessing of the Lady, which made them very, very strong in melee combat. They would take an unnatural amount of damage before they would actually go down. It's what kind of leveled them in a way.
Like, Cathay is like, you've got this, like, China is like one of the oldest, like, empires ever, that, and it's very well documented for how old it is.
Yeah.
As opposed to many other empires in humanity's history where, like, records either weren't kept or were destroyed at various points. Like, China has done a fairly good job of keeping a lot of that information around. And so there's this impossible amount of stuff to draw on, of like all these different emperors and all these different dynasties and all these different inventions where, like, okay, you know, like even Cathay in Warhammer Fantasy, depending on the author who was writing them, because maybe they make a cameo appearance in like a novel for Black Library, so the author like did some quick research on China to like figure out how he wants to write Cathay, or they show up briefly in like the Monstrous Arcana or the Tarmacon, which the Tarmacon interpretation has a lot of problems, because it seems like the author based them off Japan instead of China for some reason, which I don't know why he did that, but he did. So it's this whole thing of like, there are so many exciting things to see, but I think especially as Westerners, like I don't know about you, but my knowledge about China is like not great.
Like I play a lot of games which are kind of fantastical, rooted in China's history, but obviously it's very fantastical, like Dynasty Warriors, stuff like that. I really enjoy those games because I like the theme. I really enjoy Three Kingdoms. It's actually one of my most played games. So like I like it, but I'm not too well versed. Keep in mind, I'm European and I barely know any history of Europe or the United Kingdom. I know Gibraltar and that's it. And even then it's because we're a 300-year-old country. So there's not much.
Well, so yeah, we're basically in the same boat.
Yeah. But like we do know, and this is obviously subject to change because we don't know if they're going to change that, but we know some lore on Cathay where, like, say, the lore always puts them as the strongest human nation. They have a lot of gunpowder. They have a celestial form of magic, which may or may not be something different to the lore of heavens.
Right.
But I think that we're going to get a new lore. I think we're going to get like celestial magic in a sense.
I think that is totally possible. That celestial magic could be interpreted as a unique lore. Kind of like how with Kislev we've had this new lore of storms, which the lore of storms is basically just the lore of heavens, but with more iciness involved.
Yeah.
So that's certainly possible. But you know, for all we know, it could be that like, oh, they get the lore of heavens and they're really good at it, and then there's the lore of Jade or something. You know, that could be distinctly possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe celestial magic has just a very different interpretation of the lore of heavens, or is more hyper focused on like just the stars.
That's not bad, yeah.
No, like I absolutely agree that like, and going back to what you said with gunpowder, how much gunpowder should we expect? You know, is it going to be like the Empire where they have war machines and handguns and riders with guns, or are they going to take like oh no, there's like maybe an elite unit with guns and that's it? And like then they have a more Bretonnian relationship where they rely on more like mystical means of warfare.
So
you know, it's very difficult to predict.
From what I know, and it's very limited of Chinese history, like these guys were masters of gunpowder, so maybe a little stronger. Maybe we're supposed to expect like really, really powerful gun lines, like just insanely good, and loads of artillery fire. It's very strange because obviously we're going through. If we go by all the Cathayan lore we actually have, that's what, not even a full page, maybe, more or less.
ballpark, yeah.
So it's insane how literally it can be so different to what we're all imagining. We can all be thinking completely different things. Like some people could be thinking Han Dynasty, some people could be thinking Ming, and maybe it's just an amalgamation of all of them, just getting the best parts. It's like, ooh, this would work really well with that.
Yeah, I mean, because you're exactly right. Because like I'm sure there's, if you put like just like me in a room with another person, when I think Cathay, I tend to think more like there are lots of infantry in like mass size and stuff, but I, in my mind, am not expecting elite infantry. I'm expecting like elite units to be taken up by monsters or like special kinds of mystical stuff, like terracotta soldiers being the elite infantry.
Yes.
And stuff like that. But like in my mind, when I think Cathay, I don't think gun lines. Like for my mind, I think like the most sophisticated gunpowder weapon being like weaponized fireworks, where you have like cannons that shoot like not kind of like a Hellstorm rocket battery, but functions a little differently. That's what I think. But someone else might be in the room and they're thinking like hardcore gun lines with like really advanced forms of weaponry, to really take advantage of like Cathay having gunpowder a lot longer than the Empire has. So like by that logic, shouldn't they have more advanced guns? Which I would counter argue, for anyone that wants a counter argument, that the dwarfs did have a lot of influence on the Empire and taught them a lot of stuff, which is why the Empire advanced so quickly despite their age. But it's such a strange thing, and it's like, how many monsters are they gonna have? There are tons of monsters in Chinese myth. I mean, Chinese myth literally has the Journey to the West, which is literally just this, I think it's like one of the longest stories ever written. It's like insanely long, and it's literally just like a monster of the week type series, where you have these characters running into some kind of different demon or monster on like a weekly basis as they make this insanely long journey that was written, thousands of years ago, which is what gave us like Sun Wukong and all this other stuff, or gave the West a lot of that ideology, and has inspired a lot of like super famous animes and stuff, like Dragon Ball Z, and all this stuff. So it's like, what's going to be the ratio of, because there's only so much they can do it at once, of like, what's going to be the ratio to, are we going to focus mostly on like Chinese humans to fill up the roster, or is it going to be like a little bit of humans and then you have like all these divine like dragon turtles and I think they're lion turtles in like the actual Chinese myth. I forget what I think lion turtles are the big Chinese thing. Or like, and like serpentine dragons and all this other crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've already had some translated into Warhammer Fantasy, like the Kirin and the it's just trying to remember those names because they're from what, 2nd or 3rd edition is a bit tough, but we've had some stuff, and I love Chinese mythology. I mean, the stuff is so intricate, and it would be really cool to see a healthy mix. I think design wise, because let's be honest, we can more or less expect this to end up becoming a like a tabletop army for Old World, right?
Yeah, I would be genuinely shocked if almost the instant Cathay is revealed, Games Workshop's not like, by the way, if you want to give us money, we'll be selling plastic versions.
So I think they'll go for lots of big monsters just to have like those centerpiece models that you could base your dioramas on and stuff like that, because that's what they do for a lot of armies.
Yeah, well, I mean, hell, like for anyone that's seen like Avatar: The Last Airbender, the giant lion turtle that almost randomly shows up at the end of the show, like I want a Warhammer version of that thing. Like just a terrifying giant, like what a horrifying monster in your mind, right? A giant lion turtle, like a big predator that has the toughness of a giant turtle monster that is like so large it has like trees and stuff growing out of the turtle shell on its back. That just sounds super awesome to me. And of course, I think anybody in their right mind is excited for Eastern dragons, celestial dragons.
Damn right.
you know, good. They have you know, such a iconic, legendary design.
Yeah.
That so many different fantasy universes pull on. Where especially because you have this whole philosophy of that, which I'm curious if they're going to bring it into Warhammer, where the dragons of the East in our history tend to be much more benevolent, and are more like guardian spirits, or like spirits of the river and all this stuff, as opposed to dragons of the West, which were more considered like destructive forces, or like forces of evil, or like hell and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see what they're gonna do with those.
My main concern regarding design and so on is it has to look and feel like Warhammer, because the Kislev stuff looks good, but they had a basis to go on there, right? There's no basis for Cathay, and for me it's like, oh, it needs to be Warhammer Fantasy. It can't look too over the top, or else it's not Warhammer Fantasy, you know?
No, I would almost argue that it's the opposite problem, where like to be Warhammer Fantasy, it has to be too over the top. It can't be too grounded.
No, I mean, like, if we look at the Empire, you know, it's nice and grounded. Even the Skaven, in a sense, are grounded when you compare it to, say, for example, the Stormcast or the Caradon Overlords.
Oh,
and stuff
yes.
like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean on that. And they're you know, it's kind of funny. There's almost this weird sweet spot, which Warhammer sits in, which I honestly think is the true charm of Warhammer, where it sits in this awkward middle ground between historical, which is it's too grounded and I find boring. Where, like, you know, if you're dealing with someone that's like a really historical person, literally just take any historical nerd on the internet, put them in a room with Warhammer stuff, and watch them be like, actually, that type of gun would not work this way, because it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just, let me enjoy myself. Sit down, shut up. You know, but you're right in that they can't go too far the other way. Where Age of Sigmar, you have these like completely just batshit balls to the wall designs that are so over the top that they just don't. They're too grandiose.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm here to play a augmented version of history, not to play fantasy space opera. You know,
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I do have faith that we will be fine, because you know, I'll say, I think if Games Workshop had been designing it by themselves, they would have jumped the shark. If they were making Cathay by themselves, I do not think they would have done appropriate research. I don't think they would have tried to be historically appropriate, and I think they would have completely jumped the shark with Cathay. I think because Total War is heavily involved and is like one of the major, you know, pushing forces to make the faction, I think it will be appropriately grounded, and will be what we want it to be. It will be a Warhammer faction, not an Age of Sigmar faction in Warhammer.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially if we look towards the future, Cathay being such a clean slate might dictate the future of DLC.
Yes, and that is a discussion we will absolutely have in the future. Probably next episode is talking about other races that we want to see, and because this has to be addressed, and we'll probably dedicate an entire segment to it next episode. But it has to be addressed, which is that if you're someone that cares a lot about the Warhammer world, like me and Nathan do, one of the biggest flaws of Warhammer Fantasy, and something that Cathay directly throws a wrench into, which makes it such a big freaking deal, is that Warhammer Fantasy is immensely overrepresented and dominated by white cultures, Western white cultures, which is one of the biggest flaws of the universe. Is that you don't have Araby, you don't have End, you don't have Cathay, you don't have, and that, you know, unfortunately, there's this unfortunate kind of frankly fair to point out stereotype that a lot of the non-white races in Warhammer tend to be creatures. Where your South Americans are lizards, your Mesopotamians are chaos dwarfs, and a lot of cultures were also combined. Where you have like Native Americans and South Americans, so like the entire Western Hemisphere was fused into the Lizardmen, which has some issues. But there's no representation from African cultures. There's no representation from Middle Eastern cultures. There's no representation from Oriental cultures, and it's a huge flaw. It is.
It's a lot of things. It's not only just like that. Like for example, I'm Iberian, right? So genetically, I'm Spanish mixed with more. So I want to see like a proper Estalian faction with some different things. The Baltics were never really represented too well, even though we have the border princes. It was always just Holy Roman Empire, France mixed with England, and Americans. And it's like, well, if we brought in more human factions, it would bring more people into the game. And I know, like, I know a lot of Arabic fans want, like a lot of Arabic people, a lot of Muslims, they want Araby because...
Yep.
They were actually represented very well in the lore. It's just a few idiots misinterpret the lore and put it into something else. But like Araby was always a true neutral faction. They were just doing their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of Araby is, and that's like I said, this is probably something that'll eat up almost the entirety of next episode because there's just so many things to talk about for each individual one of these. Mm-hmm. I don't even think it's fair to put like Araby and End in the same episode because there's so many different things that could be well done with them, and how they be represented. I think that even though I don't think there's enough to justify them as a full standalone race, I think as mercenaries, having the Amazons in would be a huge win of being able to like really have Creative Assembly sit down and do research on like a lot of the tribes from South America, many of which are still around, and see them interpreted into these badass warrior women of the jungle who are like, if you ever read the lore of the Amazons, and I don't mean like the goofy white dwarf one, which I'm frankly not a fan of, where they're like a futurist, they're like this weird race of superhumans.
Yeah.
I mean just like the old school, like from the Lustria campaign, where they're just these like really badass warrior women who literally like kick the shit out of entire like mercenary warbands by themselves, like ripping them apart with these like crazy javelins with like horrifying toxins, and like they wield these really badass like stone weapons, and like they're badasses.
Yeah.
And seeing them brought in like the ogres have been brought in, I think would be great.
Yeah.
But Cathay, what I think makes it such a big deal is that Cathay is finally breaking the mold. Mm-hmm. Cathay is coming sweeping in and being like, boom, here's a fully represented Oriental race that is going to... Because the thing is, I want to make sure this is understood. I'm not just saying this from like some kind of PC perspective of like, oh, well, everyone, deserves representation. I think that's a valid argument, but that's not why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because every culture has such amazing badass mythologies that are so unique, and bringing them into Warhammer so I can make the different mythologies of the world kill each other in badass fights is the most glorious thing we can fight for on this earth.
Exactly. And not only that, it's important from a Warhammer fan perspective. We want more stuff. We want more armies. Like, let's be honest, when it came to 8th edition, we had lost the Dogs of War in 7th. We've lost, technically we did lose the Chaos Dwarves, but they eventually came back as a Forge World army, and even then they weren't really a full-fledged out one. We want more stuff. We want more armies to play with because it's fun for us. This is a game that we enjoy, and we want to actively have other stuff to play around with, to try new stuff. And the idea of bringing in more nations is always really cool, because there's loads of people who are always actively saying, look, we want Cathay, we want a real Estalia, we want a real Talia, we want a real Vampire Coast, we want all this and that,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you could literally spend 5 minutes on Google and just look up like a famous culture, whether it's in India or the Arabian ballpark, or China or Japan or Native Americans and all this stuff, and you'll learn about creatures that'll make you go like, whoa, that sounds super cool. And I would love to see it like just smashing through regiments of Empire soldiers, or like, fighting wyverns in the sky and all this other crazy bullshit. I want to see, people wearing like all these like awesome silks and stuff, riding on camels, charging into battle, backed up by genies and some kind of like powerful wizard lord sitting on a flying carpet and all this crazy bullshit.
Exactly.
And, and like from End, I want to see like some kind of, I want to see powerful types of weapons riding on elephants that have been geared out with like crazy magical augments, buffed up by warriors that have like multiple arms to represent like these different divine aspects and all this crazy shit. Like there's so many cool things you can do. Because fantasy is a breeding ground of letting cultures be interpreted into a most heavy metal way we can think of, and just be thrown into a mosh pit and beat the shit out of each other.
Exactly. And we have to take into account that the original people, the original people behind the whole fantasy push was Rick Priestley and so on. They're history nerds. They originally wanted a history game, but what they did is they turned that history game into fantasy. They got our world and then decided, you know what, let's just add in dragons, let's distort the timeline, let's do this, let's do that. And it worked out really well. Look, I'm going to be very honest. Like, I love Age of Sigmar, I love 40k and stuff like that, but it's not the same to me that fantasy.
It's not the same.
Because it had that history element, which made you associate with the race and faction that you picked, because you're like, ooh, which one represents me the most? And you just got more out of it.
And that's, I think that's the biggest thing when it comes down to it, right? Is that when you're dealing with, like, I'm in the boat with you in that I really enjoy aspects of 40k. It's my least favorite of the universes, but I do still appreciate it. And I love Age of Sigmar, even though Age of Sigmar is, obviously bolstered a bit by its connection to fantasy. But at the end of the day, like, if you take Age of Sigmar by itself, there's nothing that makes it different really from any other fantasy universe. Like, that's the thing, right? If you don't have that historical rooting that fantasy does, then there's literally just not a difference between all of your different fantasy universes. At that point, it just becomes like minor stylistic things, or like which one you were introduced to first as a kid, so you have that bias for it, or like has better writers. But like, what makes Lord of the Rings different from Magic the Gathering, different from Wheel of Time, different from Age of Sigmar, different from just Into Infinity, right? What's like Doom different from 40k, different from Starship Troopers, different from Star Trek, different from, right? They all, but Warhammer just truly stands unique in its own sphere because of that historical background.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so important to us.
And that's why
at least me and Nathan.
Yeah, and that's why it fits so well with Total War, because obviously it's still the same thing, isn't it? This is why Total War Warhammer does so well. Yeah, it's not done in a historical way, but it's done, that's like, with fantasy itself being bred off the idea of a historical game, it fit with these games so well. And if we're going to start seeing more races and factions from different cultures and so on, I trust CA. I might not trust GW so much, but I trust CA. I completely trust CA.
Flat out. Yeah, I trust Creative Assembly very, very much.
Yeah.
Design wise. I don't trust Games Workshop. They do cool stuff, but it's jump the shark cool stuff, not grounded cool stuff.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we're pretty much at time. We've been going for about an hour 40, so I think that's a good place to end it for today. If there's kind of any like outstanding comments on the chat that you'd like to point out, or any kind of like outstanding thoughts you have as we're kind of wrapping up. But like, one thing I wanted to point out that showed up in my chat that I really appreciated is like, someone in chat, Charger Rhino, literally just said that, for India, I'd love to see a creature called the Yali interpreted to be a Warhammer monster, which I have no idea what that is. I'm gonna try and Google it. Indian myth Yali. and see if anything pulls up. Yep, I see it. And it looks very cool. It's literally like a horse-type creature that has an elephant's head.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Sounds cool, though. Like, sounds like it would make a really good monstrous cavalry unit.
Yeah.
But, like, it's, part elephant, part horse, part lion. Sounds great.
I know.
called a Leogryph. Sounds perfect. Sounds like a perfect demigryph equivalent. But, just, like, great stuff like that. So any closing thoughts or things from you, Nathan, before we wrap up?
Honestly, I'm just, like everyone else, I'm patiently awaiting Cafe. I want it to be good. I want it to be cool like you guys do. Keep in mind that I'd say, like, you and I being so firmly rooted in Warhammer Fantasy that we don't tend to look at this as a YouTuber or a streamer perspective. We look at it more as a fan perspective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when new stuff gets announced, we're like, does this look good? Does this look that? Is this Warhammer Fantasy? Which is always in the back of my mind, because it's just something that just makes it's a very important world for us, man. Like, this is like everything to me, This is one of these things that is taken up so much of my childhood.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out that I think is super important to understand about why Lorebeards exists as a concept even is that when I had the idea to kind of get this made is that, and like I was thinking, like, who would be the best person to talk to on a weekly basis, which is really hard to do, for the record. I've tried podcast type scenarios many times, and they always die super fast because you just run out of shit to talk about. But it was like, you know what, Nathan, because Nathan is the only other person who, not the only other person, I should say, but the person who I identify the most with as far as if YouTube died tomorrow, right? Like, if it just, like, ceased existing for some reason, and me and Nathan could no longer do anything where we could talk to y'all ever again, we would still do this. Like, nothing would change for us. We would still be all up in Warhammer's grill, talking to each other for hours about stupid crap, and, like, we're not in this for the YouTube whatever. We did this because we're just super passionate about the game. It's not about that Total War Warhammer is a popular game, therefore, as YouTubers, we're following the money. That's not what we do. Not throwing shade on anyone that does do that. Like, you do you. You do what gets bread on the table. But, for us, regardless of how popular Warhammer is, we're going to be following it, and we're going to be talking about it. And that's all there is to say on that.
Yeah, if we wanted real money, we'd be doing Minecraft.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? So thank you all so much for joining us today for this episode of Lorebeards. We be sure to keep an eye on Twitter and our Discords for when the next episode will be. Tentatively, it'll probably be not this Sunday, but next Sunday. But that may change depending on if we've got something going on. One of these days, we will we will land on a consistent Sunday schedule. But for now, that's going to be it for us today. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure that before starting today, you start working on a hero model. Whether maybe you're just new to the hobby, maybe go to your local store and pick up just like a cheap hero. You can usually get them for like $10 to $15 if you just like want any hero. Or for those of us that have massive backlogs, just pick one of the thousands that you probably have lying around. And be sure to use that Lorebeard hashtag on Twitter to make sure that we see them. And that'll be it. So see you guys next time. If you have any feedback or recommendations, you can always hit me or Nathan up on Twitter. Just add us in on a tweet or whatever, or jump into our Discords and say something. Appreciate you all. And thanks for watching, guys.
And guys, on my behalf, I am going to be giving you a link to a Rubber Duck of War. Lovely guy. He's currently casting some No Legendary Lord Tournament games. Awesome. Go check him out. Lovely dude. Give him a big boot from me. He's really, really good. Honestly, his cast is just amazing. You guys are really going to enjoy that. Go give him some love and just enjoy. See you guys. Have a great one.
All right, Nathan, I'll see you later. I'm going to talk to my chat for a bit.